This is Parveen Ali for in the program of in the health program. So we will talk about different issues in health. So we started this program last week. और हमने आपको बताया था कि ये प्रोग्राम हर जुमे की दोपहर 12 बजे लिंक एफएम से नशर किया जाएगा। और हमने ये भी बताया था कि इस प्रोग्राम में हर हफ्ते हम किसी एक सेहत के मौजू पर बात करेंगे, उसके सेहत से मुतालिक और हेल्थ से मुतालिक उस मौजू से रिलेटेड डिफरेंट थिंग्स को वी कैन एक्सप्लोर दैट। वी विल ट्राई एंड गेट उस सब्जेक्ट से रिलेटेड जो एक्सपर्ट्स हैं उनको भी हम बुला सकें प्रोग्राम के अंदर, ताकि वी कैन डिस्कस डिफरेंट इश्यूज रिलेटेड टू इट। और आपके भी क्वेश्चंस किसी भी उस पर्टिकुलर प्रॉब्लम से रिलेट करते हों तो हम उसके बारे में भी बात कर सकेंगे। क्योंकि फ्रॉम 25 नवंबर टू 10 दिसंबर यूएनओ की तरफ से 15 डेज ऑफ एक्टिविज्म वायलेंस अगेंस्ट वुमेन की कैंपेन चलती है। तो इन 2 हफ्तों में पूरी दुनिया में लोग जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस और वायलेंस अगेंस्ट वुमेन के बारे में बात करते हैं। तो हमने सोचा कि इस प्रोग्राम में हम भी इस इश्यू को लेके बात करें, बिकॉज दिस इज समथिंग विच इज़ नॉट ऑलवेज टॉक्ड अबाउट। हमें बहुत ज़्यादा इस बारे में पता नहीं होता है, लोगों को पता नहीं होता है कि ये कितनी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है और इसकी वजह से क्या किस तरह से हो सकता है। सो वी जस्ट थॉट इट वुड बी गुड आइडिया टू टॉक अबाउट इट। आई हैव गॉट माई गेस्ट विद मी एज वेल हु इज एक्सपर्ट इन दिस फील्ड, सो शी विल बी एबल टू टॉक अबाउट दैट एज वेल। So just to start off, we'll talk about domestic violence, gender-based violence, क्या होती है, किस तरह से होती है और उसके different किस्म के aspects पे बात करेंगे। But if you would like to call us and if you would like to contribute to the discussion, you can call us on 0114-261 8181, and you can also WhatsApp us on 07939849339. So this is Link FM 96.7. So हम बात कर रहे थे जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस एंड डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस की। वेल, जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस इज समथिंग विच इज प्रेवलेंट ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड, इन एवरी कंट्री, इन एवरी प्लेस। सो हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि किसी एक मुल्क या एक एथनिसिटी या एक जियोग्राफिकल लोकेशन में ये प्रॉब्लम है। दिस इज समथिंग विच इज एवरीवेयर, हर जगह पे है। बहुत सारी चीज़ें इस डेफिनेशन के अंदर आती हैं, विच इंक्लूड्स फिजिकली, सेक्सुअली, इमोशनली, या किसी भी इस तरीके से दूसरे बंदे को अब्यूज़ करना, और ट्राइंग टू कंट्रोल समवन, ट्राइंग नॉट टू लेट देम do what they would like to do, affecting their decisions. All of these are forms of gender-based violence. Gender-based violence की बहुत सारी मुख्तलिफ किस्में हैं, जैसे for example when we talk about domestic violence, this is something which happens more in the house, more in the private settings, between families, between intimate partners. जनरली डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस इज़ क्वाइट अ बिगर इशू। सो इसके अंदर घर के अंदर जो चीज़ें होती हैं, इंटीमेट पार्टनर्स के अंदर होती हैं, या जो लोग साथ में रहते हैं, वो सारी चीज़ें आती हैं। लेकिन ये टर्म also describes violence which happens between husband and wife, which happens between partners, तो उसके लिए ज़्यादातर इस्तेमाल की जाती है। इसके अलावा दूसरी फॉर्म्स में आपके पास एल्डर अब्यूज़ है, जिसमें कि हम बुज़ुर्ग लोगों के साथ ज़्यादती, जो कि अगेन घरों के अंदर हो सकती है, वर्क प्लेस पे हो सकती है, बहुत सारी दूसरी जगहों पे हो सकती है, वो इसकी एक फॉर्म है। चाइल्ड अब्यूज़, बच्चों को अच्छे तरीके से ना ट्रीट करना, बच्चों पर जुल्म ज़्यादती करना किसी तरीके की इज़ अनदर फॉर्म। वर्क प्लेस वायलेंस, काम की जगहों पर जहाँ पर हम काम करते हैं वहाँ पर एक्सप्लॉइट करना लोगों को, वहाँ पर उनके साथ बुरा बर्ताव करना इज अनदर एग्जाम्पल। ट्रैफिकिंग, लोगों को एक जगह से दूसरी जगह स्मगल करना एंड देन एक्सप्लॉइटिंग देयर राइट्स इन दैट वे। ऑनर बेस्ड वायलेंस, when we talk about many different countries including पाकिस्तान, इंडिया, बांग्लादेश और बहुत सारे दूसरे मुल्कों को लेके। सो प्लीज, जैसे मैंने कहा कि इट्स इंक्लूडिंग दीज कंट्री, आई एम नॉट सेइंग दिस इज लिमिटेड टू दैट ओनली दोज कंट्रीज। सो बहुत सारी दुनिया की हर जगह पे ये वाली चीज़ें होती हैं। सो ऑल ऑफ दैट कम्स इन टू इट। यूके के अंदर फीमेल जेनिटल म्यूटिलेशन इज ऑल्सो comes under the definition of domestic violence, so that's something we need to be aware of. और अगर हम statistics देखें तो पूरी दुनिया में हर 3 में से 1 खातून, so 1 in 3 women is exposed to some kind or some form of violence in their life. They have experienced some kind of violence in their life, and majority of them are exposed to intimate partner violence, which means that उनके husbands या उनके partners या वो लोग जिनके साथ वो ज़िंदगी गुजारते हैं वो उनके ऊपर physical, sexual, emotional या किसी भी तरीके का abuse करते हैं और वो उनका शिकार होती हैं. जब हम डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस की बात करते हैं तो इट्स नॉट, हम ये कोशिश नहीं करते या हम ये नहीं कहते कि मर्द जो है वो डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस का शिकार नहीं होते या जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस का शिकार नहीं होते. मर्द भी वायलेंस का शिकार होते हैं, लेकिन मेजॉरिटी जो लोग हैं वो स्ट्रीट वायलेंस में या घरों से बाहर या उन पे वायलेंस करने वाले लोग स्ट्रेंजर्स होते हैं. दे नॉट देयर फैमिली मेंबर्स, दे नॉट समबडी हु दे नो. वेयर एज व्हेन इट कम्स टू विमेन, majority of the time it's their husband, it's their family member, it's someone they know who is the perpetrator जो कि जुल्म या ज़्यादती कर रहा होता है. दूसरी एक चीज़ ये भी याद रखने की है कि when we talk about men in violence and women in violence, hospitals के अंदर या GP surgeries के अंदर या दूसरी जगह पे the number of women who experience injuries, the number of women who experience चोटें जिनको लगती हैं, दूसरी तरह की symptoms के साथ आती हैं, उनका नंबर हमेशा ज़्यादा रहता है. The number of women being killed by their intimate partners, by their husbands, उनके partners या उनके family members, उनका नंबर बहुत ज़्यादा है as compared to men. तो इसीलिए इस issue को when we say gender based violence, it's usually seen as violence against women. और जैसा कि मैंने आपको बताया कि हर जगह पे हो सकती है, किसी भी there is no one setting which is immune to it, there is no one country which is immune to it. So that's what we are going to talk about today. मेरे साथ गेस्ट हैं Zulekha Ahmed. Zulekha runs a small organization called Apna Haq in Rotherham. So I'm going to, she's very experienced in this particular field. She has been helping women for many years, and I'm very grateful for her for getting the time to be here today. और मैं उनको बताएंगी कि उनसे बात करूंगी. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, Zulekha, and your organization.
Okay, so I came to Rotherham about 32 years ago. I got married and came to Rotherham, and my first job was with Bano Mahal in Sheffield on West Street, and that was a program for Asian women to get them back into work. And while I was working there, I started to come across younger women than myself who were going through issues of domestic violence. And then I left, I went to Rotherham, I was working there in different settings, and again over the years I was getting numerous young women who were sharing sexual, physical, emotional, financial abuse issues, and wanted some support, but there wasn't anywhere that was appropriate to refer them into. So it was something that I became aware of, and in my mind I wanted to be able to do something about it.
Yeah, okay. So then that's how you started your organization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did a funding bid. There was the police were had made some funding available, and I do speak my own language, but I'm not very fluent. Whereas my younger sister had come to visit, and she married her husband who was from Pakistan. So she'd done Urdu courses, A-level Urdu. So she was a lot more comfortable with the language. So I talked through what I wanted to do as an organisation, and I said to her, can you think of what I should call this organisation? And she gave me the beautiful name of Apna Haq, which alhamdulillah, we've been going for 24 years.
MashaAllah.
And although we're a small organisation, and we support women locally in Rotherham, as an organisation we influence policymakers at a regional government level and just across the country. So it's been a pleasure and a privilege to do the work that I do.
That's great. So if I ask you a question in Urdu, आपको समझ आएगी ना?
Oh.
ठीक है. So I was going to ask कि जब आपने ये organization बनाई थी, so what was it? Did you think there was not enough services for BME women के लिए services नहीं थी? आपने कहा services available नहीं थी उस वक्त, organizations नहीं थी जहाँ पे लोग जाके बात कर सकते या औरतें अपने हक के लिए जाके या किसी किस्म की help ले सकती? Or was it for Pakistani and BME women which was not there? So what was it?
It was basically the Pakistani and BME women. So the examples of the types of issues that the women were facing weren't issues that I could go, for example, to my white colleagues and say, this woman is going through that. They just look at you thinking, what are you on about? And the women wanted, a lot of times they just wanted ongoing support.
Yeah.
And so, for example, one of the early cases was a woman who was the only child of parents who had both married each other against their own parents' wishes in Pakistan.
Okay,
and
both
she was
were
the only
Pakistanis?
child. Yeah, both were Pakistanis. So she was the only daughter, and she then got married to a man, and for many years, 10 years back, in order to get your husband over on the visa, well, it's similar now, but you had to earn a certain amount of money. So this woman went out in the morning, 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, got any job that she could. In the meantime, over the years, she had a number of children. And I was quite shocked because I went to see her one day, and when she opened the door, she had a black eye. So what had happened is eventually the husband had come over, and when he came, he couldn't deal with the fact that she was going out to work. And the whole reason for her going out to work was that she could earn enough money to enable him to come over. And she was like really, she wanted to get out of that marriage, but she didn't want to upset her parents.
Yeah.
And there was all that pressure that, you know, my parents had got married, I'm their only child. You know, they were now finally sort of happy because I'd got married, and I don't want. So she wanted support, and at that point, it was about rights. So she didn't want to say to her parents, "I don't want this. I want this marriage ending." But that's how she felt. So the discussions were about needing to, for example, contact the Home Office and see if we could do anything. Another example, and this was a case in Rotherham. I always say that most of the women that we've, all of the women are beautiful.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
beautiful women. She was a young woman again who'd come from Pakistan this time, and her husband had married her, but had a girlfriend on the side. So
so the husband was here and he had a
girl. Yes, yeah. And so again, at the beginning, it was lots and lots of emotional support. There was a number of other young women who one had gone abroad to European countries. So a British-born girl who'd gone to a European country and came back within 3 months, and she was sharing horrendous levels of sexual and physical violence within the relationship. And for all of these girls, they wanted somebody who was from their own community. So who had a Pakistani background, who had an understanding, for example, about their religion that they could talk to, because there was a lot of pressure on these girls to stay quiet and put up with the marriage. But obviously it was impacting on them. So for me, I went to a conference in Leeds where it was a group of women from India who came to talk about the work they were doing in India, and that was about supporting women on domestic violence and also the economics, because what they said was that in order to ensure that women can live their lives in safety with their children, you need to make sure that women have enough money coming in and they've got their own housing.
Of course, yeah.
So when I saw them, I thought, wow, if you know, if women in India can do this, it's something that I'd like to be able to set up and create a safe space for women.
So we are talking about how many years back?
We're talking about 24 years ago
24 years
Yes.
back. And I think what you're saying, most of the issues are still relevant. I think, as we have said earlier on, that domestic violence is not limited to one particular ethnicity or one particular nationality or anything. It happens across the board. But I think what we find it very hard is the pressure from the dusre logon ke, and then trying to keep them happy, because we would... it takes for our women, for women from Pakistani origin or South Asian women, much longer to get out of the relationship or to talk about it as compared to... I think it is difficult for anybody, but I think we in our community there are additional barriers which puts pressure on them to stay in that relationship. And you've talked about some of them, like family pressure, where people would expect you to be to stay in the marriage, or economic, for example, आपने कहा कि लोग independent नहीं होते, and that is the biggest hurdle. What else do you think is specific to our community which makes women two
issues which are sort of opposite of each other? So one is where you've got women and men married into families where there's the Dawati system, brothers and sisters married into
Bradri system,
and the Dawati
relationships
system. So for one person to think about leaving that marriage, it's not just themselves they're thinking about, they're also thinking about their other brothers, their sisters.
So it's Vatta Satta way, where,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
two siblings are married to two
Yeah.
siblings sort
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. And also because it's within families, so it's just not you walking out on that marriage, there's lots of other people to think about. And then the opposite we found really true as well, in that where men and women have had a love marriage and they're outside of the family, there's pressure then to keep quiet, because initially the women have faced a lot of pressure, for example, saying not to get married into that marriage.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
when that marriage is breaking down, or where there's violence, they feel, how can we actually say to the family that maybe you were right and this wasn't right for us?
So it's the pressure from both sides, isn't it? So initially not to marry that person, but once you're married, there may be pressure from in-laws as well.
Yeah.
And once you're at the point of breaking up, the pressure is from both sides, but then it's kind of an issue of embarrassment and shame that, you know, how would you face your parents or your siblings who would then accuse you, we told you don't do. And
there's also some of the linked myths, for example, that it's better for a husband and a wife to stay together no matter what is happening, and that it's better for the children. Whereas we know in reality that the impact of domestic violence has long-term negative impacts on children, and it's actually better, as our organisation has shown, for women to leave and live in safety with their children, because those children come out much happier and much rounder people.
Yeah. And you also talked about this aspect of, girls being married to men here who already are in relationship with somebody else. In my work, I have also come across quite a lot of those situations, and I think वो हमारे यहाँ वो notion है ना कि इसकी शादी कर दो ये ठीक हो जाएगा. So I think parents find शादी as a way of, they think for some reason अगर उसकी आप शादी करा दें with the person everybody approves, so they would somehow leave their relationships, which is basically affect करता है बहुत सारी जिंदगियों को. It's not one person, but it's the whole families, it's the whole relationships. और usually लड़की के माँ बाप को या लड़की को खुद भी इन चीज़ों का पता नहीं होता है, जहाँ तक मैंने देखा है कि फैमिली के अंदर ही होती है लेकिन उनको बताया नहीं जाता. And then that creates problems.
Yes, we've had many examples of that as well. And again, that's not good, because what that often gives rise to is emotional, physical, sexual violence within that relationship. And what we try and encourage, that these men need to be much stronger and be open about their relationships and not take advantage of the women.
एक और चीज इसकी, I'm not sure in the UK it's that much prevalent, लेकिन आपने ये बात की है. So I think the more I'm working on this issue, the more I'm realizing कि हमारे पास खवातीन के लिए तो फिर भी there are training opportunities. You get to learn about the relationship, or how to have a good relationship, or how to avoid conflicts by your friends, अपनी family members. कोई ना कोई आपको बता रहा होता है कि ससुराल में कैसे रहना है, क्या करना है. मुख्तलिफ TV soaps इस बात पे बात कर रहे होते हैं, everything. But with regards to men, there is not a lot of training. उनको पता ही नहीं होता up until the day of marriage कि how do you sustain relationships. And जैसे ही शादी होती है, they find it very, very difficult to balance between different relationships. बीवी के साथ कैसे रखना है, माँ के साथ कैसे रखना है, and they just don't really understand that conflict. और उस lack of awareness की वजह से a lot of problems happen in the initial years when you you're trying to keep either your mom happy or your sister happy or your wife happy, because you don't know how to tackle all of these relationships at the same time.
I agree, but what I would say is that there are lots of marriages where you have problems, but you don't necessarily have domestic violence.
No. Domestic violence is not acceptable in kind of any circumstances. There's no doubt about it.
That's a separate issue. And yes, that is, I know in Sheffield we've had a number of, for example, marriage courses where some of the sheikhs that have come in are actually talking about some of those issues, about a mother's rights and a wife's rights. And obviously some of those issues come up because of the extended family situation.
And the other thing is, like, especially in the context of Pakistan, the corporal punishment. Boys are exposed to a lot more, kind of the only way they have seen conflict managed is through by किसी ने डांटा, किसी ने डपटा, किसी ने through violence sort of stuff in schools में, in madrase में, किसी भी जगह पे. And then probably they've never learned, or they've observed violence, they've never learned to resolve conflict by positive kind of ways, and then once you get married, your wife is the only person who who is kind of in a way they think you can. It's just she should listen to you. You can do whatever you like, and you don't know how to resolve conflict positively, and then you resort to violence, and that's.
Okay, we do slightly we do slightly challenge that. Not slightly, we do
so you
challenge
find
that quite
then?
Well, no, because what we find is that, for example, the men who are abusive to their wives or partners, they are only abusive to the wives and partners and nobody else.
Yeah.
And so we challenge, and so what we say is that those men are, so it's not an issue that they've learnt violence and this is the only way they know to live, because if that was true, then they would be violent to everybody they knew.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's only the women in their lives that they're doing this to, that's because they've chosen, and it's a deliberate behaviour, and it's because as a society we in a way we give them permission.
We don't hold them responsible for their actions, do we?
Yeah, because if you look at this country, the whole work around violence against women started from the voluntary sector. And in terms of honour-based violence and the number of young women that have died through that, again pressure was put on the government by the Crown Prosecution Service, because they were seeing the dead girls and saying this isn't right and something needs to change. So in terms of this country, the laws have come later and the work on the ground has come first. And because there's and it's the same worldwide, there's an acceptance of men being able to be violent to their wives and their partners, and that's what we're trying to challenge and change.
And it's not only men, it also, like, a lot of attitude surveys have been conducted throughout the world when you ask them different questions about in situations mein husband has a right to be angry towards their wife agar bachcho ko ख्याल नहीं रखती हैं या खाना सही नहीं बनाती हैं, and even women sometimes endorse those actions, and that's very surprising कि हमने उस चीज को इतना ज़्यादा internalize करते हैं throughout your life that you just kind of accept it.
Yeah, and that again is because of all the messages all the time. So whether it's one of the things I say, I have a beautiful 31-year-old daughter now, and when she was born, I thought that the world would be a much better, safer place when she grew up. But in reality, if we look at the figures, you were talking about the 1 in 3 women in the UK. It's the 13 to 25-year-old. Women and girls who have far more violence done to them than the older age range. Yeah,
because younger age is related to, again, those experiences as well, isn't it? So
and it's also, for example, if you look at the pop industry, the music industry, if you look at the language that's used, it's very, very negative towards women, and
it's very sexualized.
And it's like women are objects and you can do things to them, so then that means it fits into this story in a way that you can do things to women and nobody will do anything about it.
And I think the notion from the different games जो आजकल हैं जिसमें बच्चे games खेलते हैं, and how there's a lot which is already there, that women face a lot of problems even in those situations, or gaming के दौरान भी the kind of abuse is directed towards them is very different. अगर वो successful होती हैं किसी games में भी, and we're talking about the same age children and everything, or same age people if they are not children, but it's proportionately जो है women के खिलाफ is much more negative than for men.
So in terms of the work that we do as an organisation, so although our immediate priority and the majority of our work is about that one-to-one support for women going through domestic and sexual violence, we also do a lot of awareness raising and challenging and campaigning as well, because what we recognise is that...
So I'll just stop you here, we'll go for a break and we will come back to it and see what can we do about it.
The boy who didn't look for a safe place to cross. He couldn't be bothered to walk to a place where cars could be seen from a nice open space. So he crossed the road right next to a bend. Now his arm for some while will be struggling to mend. A car cannot dodge what it cannot see, so flatten the boy, unfortunately. Now he can't swim, dress himself, or go-kart, 'cause his arm is all limp and falling apart. Always cross where you can see what's coming.
Are you being overcharged or receiving poor service from your accountant?
Then switch to EK Accounting from Magna, the chartered accountants who provide excellent service at reasonable prices.
For company accounts and tax, personal tax, payroll, VAT and bookkeeping.
For company registrations, HMRC investigations, pensions and investments.
Plus tax planning, mortgages, business and personal insurance and R&D tax credits too.
And switching accountants is easy, as we'll take care of everything.
Visit ek-accounting.com or Google EK Accounting for contact details.
Are you looking for somewhere to hold your event? Mendi, nikah, birthday party, walima or any special occasion? Then the Pakistan Muslim Centre has just what you need. We have a range of meeting rooms, function rooms and banqueting halls that can accommodate from as few as 10 to as many as 400 people, which start from as little as £20 an hour. Catering services are available on site for additional costs. The centre has ample car parking to cater for everyone's needs. For more info, contact PMC on 0114 243 6091.
1 in every 10 people live without access to safe, clean water. Let's give them a better choice than drinking either dirty water or no water at all. Together, we can turn this desperate situation around by delivering safe water solutions to the world's poorest people. Call 0161 225 0225 or visit humanappeal.org.uk.
Glen Mill Carpets, the complete home furnishing centre with over 36 years experience. Amazing offers. British-made sofas from £499. Bed settees from £149. Double orthopaedic mattress from £99. Great competitive prices on the best brand products. Free estimate, free delivery, free car park. Glen Mill Carpets. Visit our showrooms 38 to 42 Ispital Hill, Sheffield 4 or Bradfield Road, Sheffield 6. Telephone 01142 720 200 or visit our website glenmillcarpets.co.uk.
मैं हूं मियां फारूक, आपके साथ हर जुमा की रात 9 बजे से 12 बजे तक उर्दू, पंजाबी और पहाड़ी की सजाते हैं महफिल, जिसमें शेर व शायरी, गज़लें और मौसीकी शामिल करते हैं। सुनना ना भूलिएगा प्रोग्राम महफिल शायरी।
रोते हुए आते हैं सब, हंसता हुआ जो जाएगा।
आज आप हंस रहे हो, क्या बात है?
तू ते हर खबर रखनी है। मिस्टर कॉम्पनसेटर ना नाते सुनिए उसे।
जी हाँ, वो टैक्सी एक्सीडेंट क्लेम वाले। अब समझी, बड़े बड़े रेफरल और नई नई गाड़ी।
टैक्सी चाहिए? मिस्टर कॉम्पनसेटर के पास चले जाओ 0114-386-3386 और विजिट द गोल्ड टैक्सी ऑन एबिडेल रोड, शेफील्ड।
Your very own community radio station.
Link FM.
So, thank you very much. So, we are back. So, we were talking about gender-based violence and domestic violence. So, this is Link FM 96.7 and this is Parveen in your health show, and we were talking about gender-based violence today. So, if you wanted to call us in, so you can do so in 044-261-8181, or you can WhatsApp us as well 07939849339. तो हम बात कर रहे थे कि things have not really changed much over the years. Do you think कुछ change हुआ है? The form of violence have changed or the form of abuse have changed?
Well, we've been going for 24 years, and obviously we work in Rotherham, and probably 85% of the women we've supported have been Pakistani. And so what we've found is that there are at times new issues that are coming forward. So the government at the moment is doing a consultation on a new domestic violence bill. And also nationally there's an organisation called Muslim Women's Network, and we've tried to influence the government in terms of what goes into that bill. And one of the issues locally, for example, is spiritual abuse. So women who go to Rakis to have ruqya done. And across the country, we've come across numerous women who've shared that they've had financial abuse, emotional, and also at times sexual abuse.
So if I could just say, correct me if I'm wrong, this is more जहाँ पे ख़वातीन जाती हैं the spiritual healers, let's say, ये traditional healers इनके पास for the treatment of मुख्तलिफ conditions के, या जैसे डॉक्टर्स के पास नहीं जाना तो इनके पास जाना है और वो ठीक कर देंगे, तो हम उन जगहों की बात करें तो पीर फकीर टाइप की जो चीजें हैं, उस तरह की चीजें, आमिल टाइप के लोग जो पाकिस्तान में is also very much prevalent, लेकिन ये पहले मुझे ऐसा लगता था ये पहले बहुत ज्यादा होता था, अब कम हो गया, और आपको लगता है यहाँ पे अभी भी हो रहा है इस तरह से?
नहीं, when as I said, when there's numerous women that have come forward to share really horrendous stories of the abuse, so for us it's really important because these women will not share with a white professional when this abuse is going on, whereas if it's somebody from their own background who understands. So we wanted to make sure, and Muslim Women's Network, when they put their submission into the government, they said you need to add in spiritual abuse to the and another issue is when men from here go back to Pakistan, get married, bring their wives over, sometimes they haven't had children, sometimes there's cases when the women have had children and then they send them back to Pakistan. And
so with the children?
Either with or without the children. And we call that abandoned wives, because those women have a right to be in the UK and to bring their children up here. So, so in terms of, I suppose, your question, as organisations, when we're learning about new ways that women are being abused, we're then taking that to the policymakers, because it's really important, because unless you talk about these things, women don't realise that the support is there. It's the same with domestic violence.
So so this was, I was going to ask you about that. You know, I think as we said that this is something which happens everywhere, so it's not limited to Pakistani or South Asian or any particular community, but women take much more longer to talk about it. And I think one of the reason is especially transnational marriages में जो है कि जहाँ पे लड़की वहाँ से आई है और लड़का यहाँ पर है and all that stuff, is not knowing किससे बात करनी चाहिए, कहाँ किसको बात कर सकते हैं, कहाँ जा सकते हैं, and then being threatened by not having your social network around. And I am sometimes quite disturbed to see कि आज के दौर में कि जहाँ पे WhatsApp and you know there's a lot of social media available, and a lot of these girls who come from Pakistan, they're quite educated, अच्छी लड़कियाँ हैं, पढ़ी लिखी लड़कियाँ हैं, but obviously setting up into an initial setting is quite difficult. It takes much longer, much time लगता है, तो उनके पास ऐसे means नहीं होते जहाँ पे वो अपनी family को बता सकें, या वो नहीं बता सकती because they don't want them to be upset about them, because they think like, you know, वो क्या कर सकते हैं, so I don't want to upset them, but they don't really know who to go for. आप ऐसी चीजों के कम across आते हैं, or do you think people are more
well, no, I totally agree with you. But the sad thing is that, so it's not just the girls from Pakistan. If you look at the British, so in terms of our work, if we looked at the last year and the number of British university educated girls who've had arranged marriages of their choice, so they've been happy with who they've married, but once they've got married and months of abuse, again physical, sexual, emotional, and they've put up with it because initially so one of the issues is that we don't, like you were saying, we don't teach our young people what to expect in relationships, and that if these issues, so as I said, anybody can have arguments and that's normal, that's natural,
but you need to know how to deal with them constructively rather than
but if there's physical, emotional, sexual, financial abuse, which is different to arguments, then our young people should be able to realise that that's what's happening to them, and then seek support. And the issue is that most young people don't realise that they're in particularly women, that they are in an abusive relationship, and often they're wanting it to change.
It takes quite long time for them to understand that this is not the normal relationship. And I think that's across the border. That's not from people in Pakistan or here or any particular ethnicity. I think you know, if you've not seen things differently, it would take longer for you to understand that this is.
And if you look at the way our marriages are done, alhamdulillah, like, you know, you have all this happiness. Nobody ever says to you, you may get married and it may not turn out, or this may happen. Because if that information was there, then when the abuse starts, I think maybe the women would feel more stronger in being able to approach their families. And as you said, for the ones that come from abroad, there's always that added pressure because they've come away from so far away that they don't want to burden their families.
And they're not knowing where to go, who to ask for help. So what kind of places can people go for help?
Okay, so in Rotherham we have Apnahac, which is the organisation I work for. In Sheffield you've got a number of organisations. There's Ashiana, there's Roshni, there's Eden Care, and all of those organisations have black and ethnic minority workers from the community, Pakistani workers, Muslim workers, in your own language. And with all of this work, as workers, we never ever say to the woman, you have to leave. So unless
it's
there's
their
an issue,
decision.
it's their decision.
No one forces them to make that decision.
And sometimes it will take weeks, months, years for a woman. Sometimes a woman will decide, I've had enough and I need to leave. Obviously, if we support a woman and there's issues around safeguarding for the children, then we have to take immediate action. But otherwise, it's totally up to the woman, and the support is around what the woman is and what her needs are.
You just talked about children. So one of the major barriers, or one of the major misconceptions people have, and that I've come across as well, is that लोगों को लगता है कि social service would get involved and they will take away my children. Or they will take away me, or they'll throw me, if they know if I've gone, so they would send me back. और उसकी वजह से बहुत सारे लोग बहुत ज़्यादा time तक would go through difficult period, but they don't say anything to anyone.
That always reminds me of it would have been 24 years ago. So one of the first ever young women, she was probably 19, 20 at the time. And what had happened was that we got a telephone call from the police station. Her mum had actually managed to ring through the police station because she was really concerned. Her daughter had got married, come to Rotherham for 6 months, and the mum had not heard anything back from her. And family members had started to say to her that her daughter wasn't happy. So initially the police officer went to the young woman's house, and the husband was there, spoke to the husband, and the husband said, my wife's fine. He brought the wife out and she said, I'm fine. He went back, and then 3 months later the mum wrote to the police station again and said, my daughter is not, there's something wrong because my daughter never rings me. Anyway, when the police went back, they got the girl and they brought her to the police station, and then they called us and I went to see her. And basically, when she was by herself, she broke down and shared the horrendous levels of abuse. But what she was really, really scared of, and what the family had told her, was that if she went to the police or if she went through the court systems, she would actually be raped. But she didn't know any better. She felt that might be something that happens in this country.
So she had to choose between one or the other.
And it's very similar in terms of the example you're giving. Lots of families have told the women that if you leave, social services are going to take your children. You will never see your children. We will tell them, for example, that you've got mental health problems, that you're mad. And so women don't know any better, and
does that happen?
End up leaving. No.
Do social services take children away from you?
No. I mean, in order for a child to get taken into social care, it's a long, lengthy process, and it's only where they are able to identify some serious safeguarding concerns, i.e. that the child is not safe with that mother. So in terms of our 24 years of experience, we haven't had a single child that has been taken away because the mum has gone through domestic violence.
So this is kind of unnecessary fear that people have, isn't it?
Yes.
इसकी वजह से नहीं जाके बात नहीं करते हैं, बोलते नहीं हैं. Unless child is in danger और कुछ ऐसा, और usually माँ की तरफ से तो नहीं होता बच्चा उसमें. So unless in those situations they just don't do that. So it's one of those fears, isn't it? कि ऐसा नहीं.
And in terms of one of the reasons why social services will get involved with families is when, for example, a child may go to school and may share about the abuse that's happened during the night, and the child will be quite distressed. So social services will then get involved, but what they say to the mothers is that if you leave the relationship and make sure your child is safe, then obviously the child can stay with you. But where the woman, for example, isn't acknowledging the abuse or the impact of that abuse on her and the child, then obviously social services have a responsibility to safeguard that child.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, great. I think when we talk about gender-based violence or domestic violence, एक चीज़ जो ये है, and I think which is very a strong thing in our culture in South Asian, like आप इंडिया से ले लें लोगों को, पाकिस्तान से especially, बांग्लादेश से, किसी भी जगह से, we've got very strong family networks and very close community networks, and I have always thought that yes, sometimes these are being accused of के because acceptance होती है और उस वजह से ज़्यादा domestic violence हो सकता है, people are immune to it, they ask women to stay in those relationships or and stuff like that. लेकिन मेरे ख्याल में ये हमारी strength भी है एक तरह से, so we could use that very positively, isn't it, to influence these negative behaviors, to go out to disclose them and to discourage them, basically to reduce violence. Because we are just so close knit that we would you're not completely isolated कि किसी को पता ही नहीं चल रहा होगा कि क्या हो रहा है, कोई ना कोई आपसे बात कर रहा होगा कहीं ना कहीं. So what do you think about that?
So suppose for me a number of examples. So going back to, so we set up 24 years ago, and within the first 3 years what we started to get was women that we'd supported who then started to talk to other women in the community to say, look, this is what I was going through, but because I got the support and I actually moved out of that situation, now, you know, I no longer have depression or mental health issues. My children are much happier, and over the years, many women that we've supported actually volunteer for us as an organisation. So one of the issues that, for example, Rotherham has become known for, unfortunately, is around the sexual exploitation and the child abuse that's been happening. And we've had numerous women who've, for example, developed a drama, and then we've had a number of functions, for example, Eid parties, where we've had about 90 women from the community who came, and about 8 or 9 of the local community women have then performed the drama, which is around raising issues of domestic violence, around sexual violence. So for me, when you do this work, that shows sort of the change and the progression. So many of our service users are now vocal, and they will talk about what they've gone through and how it's wrong and how we can support each other to help other women from not going through that. And of course, within all of that, there are mother-in-laws, there are father-in-laws. In terms of our referrals, we have far more referrals who come from the community. And that can be, you know, other mother-in-laws and other father-in-laws, because they've become aware of a woman and the way she's being treated or mistreated, and they think this is wrong, and we will refer her into Afnahak. So so I think
so it's recognizing your responsibility as well, isn't it? So it's, you know, you could actually use that as a very positive sort of thing where people are acting upon it, and you know, helping people to get out of those situations, or you know, helping people realize that. What sort of role do you think religious leaders have, mosques and imams, and you know, do they have any role? Or
okay, so again, when we in the first few years of when we set up in Rotherham, we did some training with the imams that were around at that time, and that was for them to understand what domestic violence is, because often people, when they don't know, they will say, for example, the arguments are the same as domestic violence, and as I was saying to you, the two are totally different. Everybody argues, you know, parents, children, husband, wife, partners, but you with an argument you resolve it, and it doesn't.
You don't have to be violent. You don't have to be aggressive to solve it.
And where there's aggression, abuse, and violence, that is wrong, and that needs changing. So going back to your question, I mean, for us as an organisation, we have a relationship with the Islamic Sharia councils, because obviously when the women have decided that they no longer want to be in the marriage, one of the things as a Muslim woman they can do is take out a hulla, which is the Islamic divorce, because often, because the men are abusive, they don't want the women to move on. So they're not bothered if the women move out, but they'll say, I won't ever give you the talaq, but you are still my property. And obviously the women want to move on. So and the Islamic Sharia councils have been excellent over the years, because they recognise domestic violence, they recognise forced marriage as well. So when those issues are sent to them, so in terms of we've got quite a good relationship with a number of the mosques in Rotherham, and so when women apply for the hulla, they have to meet up with the imam, for example, explain why they want to go through that process. And we haven't had an imam yet who has turned around to say that, you know, I'm not happy with this and this can't happen. Because as I said, when you look at what domestic violence is about, it is about abuse and aggression, and none of that is part of Islam, and it's not part of marriage.
No. And I think it is also recognizing that, you know, women have the right to ask for divorce, and they can get divorced. It's not, it's again a myth that women cannot ask for it. They don't have rights, only the men who have. And I think पहले जो बात कर रहे थे कि at the time of marriage, this time वो sign कर रहे होते निकाहनामा, so nobody wants to talk about, you know, having that right to be given to women. It's those kind of decisions that you have to make at that time. And which are very, very important, I think. And I think awareness needs to be raised about those things, really, for women and for families to understand that it's not कि आप शादी के time पे negative बात कर रहे हैं. It's foreseeing those things and making sure that the rights of the girl, rights of all individuals basically are safeguarded, और उनको किसी तरीके से if the situation comes in future कि जहाँ पे उनको निकलना हो उस शादी के अंदर से, that they have the right, and there are ways through which they can do it.
I mean, I haven't yet, but it's one of the things I'll do is I'll count the number of women, alhamdulillah, who have got divorced and then are happily remarried. And the first time that the girl that I was talking about, the first one ever in terms of the police involvement, I remember a few years later, maybe 5-6 years later, she moved to another part of the country and she rang us to say, I'm happily remarried now, and she's got a number of children. And the first time that happened and I heard about it, I was just so happy, because I thought, I always say that this work is a blessing for me. Because the number of women and children that we help, and obviously Allah had written that I was going to do this work and, you know, improve so many women's lives. So again, in terms of within Rotherham, there is an acknowledgement that there is an organisation like Apnahak that supports women around domestic violence, and those women, you know, alhamdulillah, are able to live in safety, and as I said, many of them have gone on to remarry and you know, have future husbands and future children, and they're happy in those marriages.
So where do you see your organisation going next in the future?
Okay, so alhamdulillah, as I said, although we're a small organisation and our priority of the work is with the local women, we also have a national voice, and part of that voice has been as Muslim women. So in terms of the national voice, there's a number of women who are not Muslim and are sort of against Islam, so they have an anti-Islamic voice. And what we do as an organisation is that we say that as women of faith, so as an organisation, we're not a religious organisation, but we say we recognise that the women who come to us, for example, who are Muslim, they have a right, for example, to be able to go to the Islamic Sharia Council. So 2 years ago, the government did an independent inquiry, because they were saying we want to look at Islamic Sharia councils to see whether they're needed or not. And so I was one of the people that gave evidence at the Home Affairs Select Committee. And what we were saying as an organisation is that maybe we've had 300 women who have gone through the Islamic Sharia courts now.
So if I could just ask you, why do they have to, in such a situation, go to Islamic Sharia Council or Islamic Sharia law? Why can't they go to the normal kind of court system?
Okay, because we're talking about domestic violence. So when an ordinary marriage breaks down, those two people will agree to separate, and they'll have, you know, the man will give the talaq, for example, to the woman. They'll have, if they've got the civil marriage, they'll have the civil marriage annulled as well. When we're talking about domestic violence, we're talking about abuse. So the man often will not want to let go of the woman. So we've had numerous cases where even though the man has divorced the woman in the civil courts, he has said to her, you're still my wife legally, Islamically, you cannot move on. So for the woman, in terms of if she wants to remarry, and for her own family, they want that, they want to know that she is a free woman. And so going to the Islamic Sharia courts, then it's really important for her, because she can get the certificate which says this is, Islamically this marriage is no longer a marriage.
So do they have to go through the same process again then?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's something which is unfair, because the women are then having to go through the civil marriage civil divorce route, and also the Islamic divorce route, and it's two lengths of processes and costs and emotional. Yeah. So part of the recommendation that we'd made was that the two need to come together. Because in the Jewish religion, if you get married, it's also recognized within the civil system here, and we want a very, very similar process where you have one marriage which is the nikah and also recognized as the civil marriage, and then same with the process for the divorce.
And same for the divorce process, as you've said, from the legal system as well, that if it's through the civil court, it should be recognized that marriage is dissolved, so then they don't have to go through the process.
Because what the Islamic Sharia Council do is, if you go to them and the woman has already got her civil divorce, they will automatically grant the Islamic divorce, because what they say is that by giving you the civil divorce, the man has already broken the terms of the nikah, and so you're entitled to the divorce.
You see, these are some of the things which people don't really know generally, do they? So which is quite confusing.
Yeah, and that again went, I suppose, your initial question to why the need for organisations like Apnahak. It's because we understand the community, we understand what the barriers are for women, and then we work with those agencies to say, look, this is what we need to change to enable the women to leave.
You're kind of a voice from that perspective.
Yes. And we're one of a number of organisations across the UK. And at the moment, Apnahak is part of a project called We Rise Together. And that is a number of organisations based in London. And like you've said earlier, when we talk about domestic violence, it's not just the Pakistani community. Domestic violence affects all women from all nationalities and all backgrounds. And for example, in London, we've got a number of organisations for different women from different parts of the world. And together as 5 organisations, we're actually doing a fundraising campaign at the moment where we're wanting to try and encourage as many people as possible to donate whatever small amount they can, because for the money that we raise helps us as organisations then to help more women and children to escape violence and abuse. So we actually have got a website called We Rise Together. And if anybody who's listening who'd want to be able to contribute any small amount that they can go onto that website and go and find our fundraising page.
So what's your kind of final take-home messages to the community and to the women? What do you think you would like to say? And maybe I could just ask you, when we're talking about Asian women, do you see kind of a spread as to as we've repeatedly said, it's not something which is limited to one community or one particular socio-economic group. So you can see people who are very, very wealthy and, socio-economically very independent, university educated and all that stuff, still going through the same problem. But is there any particular segment which do you think is affected by it? And I guess we've only got about 1 minute left. So what's your take-home message?
I suppose the message would be to try and educate as many of our younger daughters and girls that are coming up that this is domestic violence, this is how it can happen, and then if it starts to happen to you, reach out and get support, and get that support to be able to come out of that as soon as you can. So as I said to you, one of the things that I share is that when you asked me the earlier question, we as workers used to think that it's harder for women who come from Pakistan, but what we found over the years is that more women from Pakistan end up leaving the abusive family and resetting up a new home, and it's a lot of the British girls who don't. And when we tried to think that through, it was because for
thank you very much. Thank you ever so much for all your time and everything. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, sorry, Parveen, I can go on and on. But that point was...
रोते हुए आते हैं सब हंसता हुआ